to all my friends out there. It's lovely to see you today. And yes, I've moved. I'm reading in a different spot today, but I still got Connie. Say hello to Connie. Today's story is called My Grandma Lives in Gooligulch. And this is a very special grandma who can talk to animals. So where is Gooligulch? My grandma lived in Gooligulch near Bandywallop East, a fair way north of Murrumbum, 500 miles at least. A little west of Lawson's Rest and south of Johnson's Gap, but nowhere much near anywhere that shows up on a map. Now, Gooligulch has got a pub, a main street and a hall, a petrol pump that doesn't work, and not much else at all. Except for Grandma, dear old Gran, and this I say with pride, for Gran it was that made old Gooly famous far and wide. There's Grandma with a bird on her shoulder. And here's a picture of Gooligulch. I can see lots of animals living there. Yes, a kangaroo. Can you see the joey in the kangaroo pouch? And a sulphur-crested galah. In Sydney and in Melbourne town, they all knew Grandma's name and all about the animals that Grandma used to tame. And if a stranger came to town, perhaps just passing through, he'd see my Grandma riding by on top of a kangaroo. Wow. Can your Grandma ride a kangaroo? Or sometimes in a two-wheeled cart, a wombat at the bit. And next to Grandma in the back, a bandicoot would sit. The townsfolk thought it very odd, but Grandma took no heed. She said that she enjoyed the view upon her hopping steed. And as for training wombats, well, it took no time at all to teach them how to pull a cart and come at go and call. And there's Grandma's beautiful cart being pulled by a wombat. Now, Grandma lived just out of town, a mile beyond the pub, down by a little billabong that nestled in the scrub. Upon a hillside, ringed with trees, her rambling mansion stood, a jumbled maze of tin and canvas, bits of string and wood. And from a window out the back, she'd sit and watch galahs fly down beside the pool and drink beneath the evening stars. And here's a picture of the beautiful galahs coming down for their evening drink. What pretty birds. In years gone by, the house was full of birds, both big and small, rosellas, eagles, coots and magpies roosting in the hall, while in the tiny living room an old goanna sat and played a game of two-up with a dingo and a rat. Can you see the dingo and the goanna? I can see the rat as well. My grandma whiled the hours away conversing with a coot or listening to the wombat play a tune upon his lute. One year, when it was very hot, old Grandma went away and took the wombat with her on a seaside holiday. She didn't go by elephant or on a polar bear. Besides, you ought to know you don't find elephants up there. She didn't own a camel and they cost too much to buy. So Grandma bought some goggles and decided she would fly. The eagle wouldn't take them and the coot was far too weak, but a pelican consented. So they climbed into its beak. And off they flew, quite low at first, then climbing very high, and as they turned towards the sea, the wombat waved goodbye. There they go, up into the sky. Can you see the wombat waving goodbye? What an adventure. They flew across the desert sands and over mountains too, until at dusk they reached a place where giant tree ferns grew. The pelican came gliding down to land beside a creek, and Grandma and the wombat climbed down gladly from its beak. And while the pelican relaxed and Grandma cooked the tea, the wombat wandered down the creek to see what he could see. Oh, look at all those beautiful creatures he can see. Can you see a platypus? And some beautiful birds. The trees were full of creatures with unfriendly glowing eyes, and giant furry spiders hunted giant furry flies. A baby tree snake slithered by and gave him such a start that poor old wombat turned and fled with terror in his heart. And so they spent the night there, but the wombat stayed awake, looking nervously around him for a wombat eating snake. Oh, goodness me, there's a big snake. It looks like a rainforest to me. When morning came, they journeyed on and reached the sea at last. The rolling waves came crashing in, the tide was running fast. But undeterred, my grandma donned her frilly bathing gear and dived into the foaming surf without a trace of fear. She sat upon her blow-up horse while Wombat went to sleep. The pelican went fishing where the sea was not so deep. But when the Wombat woke, the tide had carried her away, and no one's seen my grandma, even to this very day. There goes Grandma. Do you think she's off on a new adventure? And yet I have a feeling that my grandma's still alive, having drifted to an island where she'd managed to survive. From there perhaps she made her way to England or to Spain, or maybe San Francisco on a Western Railway train. She could be taming tigers in the jungles of Tingor. But I think she's back in Gooligulch, just like she was before. Beautiful rosellas. I'm sure Grandma's safe there. What's that, Connie? Connie says she loves animal stories, and I do too. Goodbye from Connie. Connie the kissing clownfish. A kiss for you all. Bye.